Got his visa. He's gone to the airport, right?
Oh, wow. Brilliant.
He's got his visa. He's got to the airport. Sorry, I got your phone, so you wouldn't see.
Yeah. He's on his way to the airport?
Yeah, I told him take a taxi. I'll give you money when I get paid.
What he said?
Yeah, he's taking a taxi.
Hi, Mr. Anish, you're unmuted.
Ah, Hi, good evening, testing. Okay, brilliant. Mic is working. Hi, good evening, everyone. Welcome to class. Got a few more minutes. Get started shortly. Okay, brilliant. Let's give him another 3 minutes and then we'll get started. Yeah, good evening, everyone. Welcome to class. We're just hanging in there for another 2 minutes and then we'll get cracking. We're on LO4 today, final learning outcomes. So we're on a slide pack LO4. We want to wrap it up this week. Yeah, another minute and I've got to get started. Okay, fantastic. 7:33. Rest of the class going to catch up with us. All right, so we're on to LO4. And LO4 is dealing directly with strategic change management. And we're going to look. So change management, before we even get into the topic, is one of the foundational models, and it's also a fundamental core aspect of organizational strategy. So you're going to come across similar material again in other modules as you move along, or you would have already attended a module on strategic change management. And you need to understand that it is a foundation of strategy. It's a foundation of understanding organization dynamics, organization management philosophies. So we'll start off with it today, and then you might encounter it again in other modules again that will cover up similar material again. So the concept today with this last learning outcome is not to go in depth, to get a phenomenally deep understanding of, but to give you a strong overview to be able to apply some of the most common principles of change management. Obviously, when you carry out the module on strategic change management, then that's 8 lessons dedicated to change management. And these core concepts would be further expanded and further explained more in detail than what we can currently do in this short space. We only have 2 lessons, so we cannot condense an 8-lesson module into 2 lessons. Secondly, we're going to look at it from the human resource management perspective. So it's a slightly different perspective. We're going to look at it from the HR side of things. And we more specifically want to see what's the role of human resource management in driving change management in an organization. So that's just to give you a little bit of background around it. But we've got us the work cut out for ourselves. So let's get into it. Let me share my screen. Okay. So we're on LO4, as I said, plan how to implement change in an organization. So change is an everyday event. Change is an everyday event. Change happens every day in our life. 90% of change, we go through it unconsciously. 10, okay, maybe 80% and 20% we consciously, effectively move into it. The first time that you take a public transport, you are very hesitant. You're not exactly sure if it's the right bus number. You're not sure if that bus is going to get to the same bus station that you intend to get to. You're highly concerned. You're not settled. And we look at you a month later, and you now know all the bus routes that are getting to that station. And you are able to hop onto any bus that's coming and know exactly where you're going to alternate and get to where you want to go. You're no longer hesitant. You're very confident. Swipe your card in and you move. Hi, Naguib. So there is a certain change that's taken place. You've automatically become more confident. You've now developed more resources to manage your trip. Resources being that you've studied and understood the route. You know what's required and you know where it goes where and how it moves. It becomes automatic. Let's take a little deeper example. You get a new car. The day you buy a new car and you get behind the wheel of the new car, you're very careful. Very careful. You do not dart in and out of traffic. Boom, 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 boom. No. Stick to the line. You're watching people around you. No one come too close to the car. When you park at a shopping center, you're going to park a little bit further away. And you make sure there's no one opening the doors into the car. Things are so complicated today. You need encyclopedia to manage all the electronic gadgets that are going into there. So despite the best efforts that salesman can have on the floor to explain everything to you, you're never going to know 100% how to put on the air conditioning, how to set individual settings such that you know the car's features, supposed to have individual temperature zones and all that there, but how do you actually set it and get it going on the first day? You don't. It takes time, and you're still going to be puzzling and then trying to figure everything out. And it's all a new experience to you. And you do not race the engine. You drive comfortably. You're monitoring your situations. You're very aware. See you 2 months later, and you in and out the traffic, boom, turn right, turn left. As you're moving, you've adjusted the air conditioning, you've got the sound system going, got your favorite tunes playing, your phone is connected, log into Google, everything is happening. You've got, you know where the controls are, put the auto cruise control on, get the sound going. So a change process has taken place. It's a new process, and now it's something that you developed and got accustomed to. So change, we don't realize it, but we interact with change on all times. There's several examples that we can go through that are in your everyday life that you experience change. And similarly, the amazing part is that we ask employees, and they always tell you it's not the same thing. No, sir. No. Organizational change, you can't tell me it's the same thing as me buying that new car. Well, I don't understand why. I realistically do not understand why. It's the same concept. It's the same philosophy behind it that's being applied, is that you have a new situation. How you react, how you accept it, how you adapt to it will eventually get to the time that it takes you to be confident. If you have a poor adoption rate and it takes you a time to accept certain functions and regulations, it's going to take you longer to adapt. But if you're a quick adopter, fine, you're going to adapt fast. Basics, it's there. So if we relate this back to organizational change, and we take a proper example in organization, we come up with a new system. We want to implement a new finance system. We're bringing in a new software, say something like Pastel or one of the accounting software packages that are out there. Can't get my memory around there, but any one of the accounting software packages that we're now going to be doing the whole process online. And there are some plugins or adaptations that we can put in. Even if we bring something like Oracle that can now expand to the ERP system and link things up. And we now want to maneuver the staff onto the new system. So your process is that you do not go and implement the system and tell everybody, right, switch off now, everybody switch on over here. There's a little guide there, click on the right, you can see that logo for some help. You guys start moving, I want everything done on the system now. Going forward, we're using Oracle. You'd have zero success, absolutely zero success. Instead, you need a process. So you need that salesman to come in, same like the car, and they're going to do the first step, which is carry out the training. Now, if we're talking about training, immediately HR is involved. So they're going to schedule that training to be run through for the staff. Once the training is complete, we then run some system tests. We run some system tests and we start testing how well the staff have adapted to it and how well they are able to do the basic functions through there. And we know it's going to be challenging. We'll then move to the phase of archiving. We'll archive all the data. We'll move all the data off the old setup, have everything stored off. And we then set a date for the switchover. So on this date, at this time, we switch over, we switch on, we're onto the new system, and we move forward from there. Now, you're going to come across the wonderful ladies, absolutely wonderful guys, staff that have been there for years, male or female, they've been there for a long time. And you come up to them and you say, okay, so how are we doing? How did you manage with the training? Was it successful? Any questions from your side? Smile, listen. See, you need to understand something. I've been here 12 years now, 12 years. In that time, there's been no issue with my work, nothing at all. Now understand something. I love all your technology and everything that you got going for you. With pleasure, go ahead, guys. No stress. I know what I'm doing here. If the guys upstairs got a problem with my work, they need to tell me. But there's never been an issue. 12 years I'm here. I'm going to continue doing what I do because I know what I do is right. So you guys carry on. No stress. Me, I'll still deliver the same reports. And I know those reports work. And I know how to use my system. And I'm going to continue with it. So, yeah, training was excellent. Loved it. But it's not for me. You guys carry on. You're going to have that typical situation. So we have a terminology for that, resistance to change. And we need to understand why. We, as a manager, as a leader, you need to have a fundamental understanding of why. What's causing that hesitancy, driving that resistance to change? So we're going to look at that there. We're definitely going to look at that there and get a deeper understanding of that. And then we move over to the switchover. We'll go back to the switchover phase. We kick into the phase and we start the process. And then all the staff start working on the new system. So naturally, the first question that the boss is going to ask is, how successful are we? Did it go well? So how do you answer that question? How do you answer a question like that? Hey, how did we do? Did everything go well? What's your kind of response that you provide? So what's he asking is a performance figure. A performance figure. Now, how do you deliver a performance figure for this phase? How do you turn around and what are you expected to answer here? Well, the normal answer would be, we have 60% of the staff are now successfully using the system and are able to effectively deliver X, Y, Z. 30% of the staff require a bit of extra assistance. However, 10% are not yet comfortable using the system. We have planned an additional training system. We've taken them off the system for the time being, and we are working with them independently, and then we'll log them and bring them on as soon as we come in. We have some backup resources in place to fill that gap up over there. So how did you come up with all these figures, 60%, 20%, 10%, 8%? We need to understand, how do you evaluate and how do you get a performance out of change? We're going to learn that as well. Where did we get those figures from? How did we come? What process did we? Very simple. Very, very simple. But how did we get that to deliver such a good answer and be able to have an effective answer? This is what we're going to look at. So we definitely outlined it now. There is a need to change. We need to identify and understand what the need is to change. Why should we change? There is then an identification to identify the your requirements for change. Say if we're doing this financial system over, we need to evaluate different financial systems, test all the online ones and see which offers the best combination of delivering all the things that we need or maximum of the items that we need, has the ability to expand, is not a terminal system. That's the last thing you want to do, is buy a terminal system. Terminal means that's all. That's what you got is what you got. End of story. There's nothing more you can do, that it's terminal. So there is no possibility for another plug on and expand and another plug on and build and develop up. That's not going to satisfy your organization needs in any way. Then secondly, we want to look at our budget. We need to identify the budget. So the budget has got to be an encompassing budget. The finance manager is going to look at different aspects. He's going to look at the cost of the system, the software. He's then going to look at the cost of the individual licenses. He's then got to look at the cost of the training. Is that including the package? Not including the package. Support, what kind of support is there? Post that there. A long stretch of stuff that you got to cover up. When we want to expand later on, what will be the costs? What are some of the features, and what do those individual? They sell you the whole thing now, and then you come down the line and then, whoa, I only want a plugin. That plugin costs twice the amount that costs us for the initial system. Now it's too late. You've already installed everything, set everything up. So a lot of investigation has got to go in. Then the next step is we then analyzed, evaluated, decided on the system. We know what's required for the change. Then we move to the next step of the change. We then identify the training needs. We're going to do the training. We're also going to then have the resistance to the change. So obviously when we plan the training, we now got to inform the staff to say, because they just get this notification of training, they're not going to know what's happening. We need to correctly inform the staff. This is the process. This is why we're doing it. Full information. So we inform them, bring them up to speed. We're planning training. You'll be trained in this. Not to worry, you will get up to speed. The next step that comes in is the resistance to this change. This is how the resistance is going to happen. What can you do to overcome that resistance? Variety of different items that can happen. Then we have the switchover. Once we have the switchover, we then need to establish a performance rate. How well have we done? How successful have we been? These are your fundamental core concepts that we need to study and understand and apply. Let's start with a good video. I wasn't planning on starting with one, but let's start with one because we've done such a wonderful explanation. Let me just find him. Sorry, I just want to get him up over here. Just give me a second. I'll load this up for you. Oh, come on. Just get through here. This is an excellent change management video. Yeah. So here's everything that I've just explained to you. And we will start building up on this. Oh, dear me. Am I still here? I don't know why. Okay. Here we go. So here's a typical organization situation, and we've got the best person to describe it as well. George Clooney.
I'm thrilled that everyone's back under one roof. Welcome home, boys. I know there's been a lot of whispering about why we're here, so let me jump right in. Retailers are down 20%. Auto industry is in the dump. Housing market doesn't have a heartbeat. It is one of the worst times on record for America. This is our moment. Now, last summer, we received a dynamite young woman here from Cornell, and she had some pretty big ideas that she challenged me with, and my first reaction was, who does this kid think that she is? But after I gave it a listen, she really knocked me out. So, with a peek into our future, Natalie Keener.
If there's one word I want to leave you with today, it's this.
Glocal.
Global. Our global must become local. This company keeps 23 people on the road at least 250 days a year. It's expensive and it's inefficient. When I came to Craig 3 months ago with this, he told me, and quite astutely, it's only a problem if you have a solution. Well, today I stand before you with just that. You all know Ned in reception. Today I'm gonna fire Ned. Sorry, Ned. I'm sure HR will hire you back this afternoon.
We'll see about that.
Now, Ned could be any employee in any one of our clients' locations worldwide. Strategy packets would be shipped in advance. Ned would be given a seat and find one of our transition specialists waiting for him. Mr. Laskin, the reason we're having this conversation is your position is no longer available.
I don't understand. I'm fired?
Hearing the words you've been let go is never easy. Change is always scary. But consider the following. Anybody who ever built an empire or changed the world sat where you are now. And it's because they sat there that they were able to do it.
My fucking line.
Well, what happens now?
This is the first step of a process that will end with you in a new job that fulfills you.
Yeah, but how does it work?
I want you to take the packet in front of you. Review it. All the answers you're looking for are inside. Start filling out the necessary information, and before you know it, you'll be on your way to new opportunities. Now, Ned, I need you to go back to your desk and start putting together your things. As a favor to me, I'd appreciate it if you didn't spread the news just yet. Panic doesn't help anyone.
I understand.
Give it up for Ned. You can start the morning in Boston, stop in Dallas over lunch, and finish the day in San Francisco. All for the price of a T1 line. Our inflated travel budget is eviscerated by 85%. And more importantly, to you guys on the road, no more Christmases in a hotel in Tulsa, no more hours lost to weather delays. You get to come home.
Tell me you're not taking this seriously.
That's why we brought the entire company in from the road, because we're not taking this seriously.
There is a methodology to what I do. There's a reason why it works.
Coke and IBM have been doing this for years, all right? You familiar with them? And just like anything else, you know, it's going to take a few months of sort of transition, and then everybody's going to settle in.
Who are you taking off the road?
How are you not getting this? You're grounded. Everybody's grounded. It's done.
What we do here is brutal, and it does leave people devastated, but there's a dignity to the way I do it.
By stabbing them in the chest instead of the back, is that right?
You wanted to see me?
Well,
Yeah, you know what? Yeah, come on in. Come on in here.
great job out there, man.
Thank you. How's everyone taking it?
Great. Listen, I admire your zeal, and I think you have some very good ideas, but you know nothing about the realities of my industry. You can set up an iChat, but you don't know how people think.
Actually, I minored in psychology.
Nice.
Okay, kiddo, fire me.
Ryan.
Now, listen, she's gonna be doing this on a regular basis. Don't you want to know if she can fire somebody?
She just fired Ned.
My dog can fire Ned. Fire me.
You don't need to do this.
No, it's okay. I got this. Mr. Bingham, I regret to inform you that your position at this company is no longer available.
Who the hell are you?
My name is Miss Keener. I'm here today to discuss your future.
My future? The only one who could fire me is Craig Gregory.
Mr. Gregory hired me to handle this for him.
Handle what? Handle me? Mr. Gregory hired me. He's the only one who could fire me. You know what? I'm going to go talk to him.
Mr. Bingham.
No. You can't follow me. You're on a computer screen, remember?
Ryan.
All right, let's try this again. Fire me again.
I just did.
Actually, you didn't. Fire me.
That's enough. I think we get it.
Mr. Bingham, I'm here today to inform you that your position is no longer available.
I'm fired.
Yes, you're fired.
Never say fired.
You've been let go.
Why?
This is a mythical situation. How could I possibly know why?
Well, why doesn't matter. You never know why.
It's important not to focus on the why and rather to spend your energy thinking about your future.
Well, I'm going to spend my energy on suing you unless you give me a good reason why you're firing me.
Mr. Bingham, the reason's not important.
So you're firing me without grounds. Now I really have a lawsuit.
I get what you're trying to say, Ryan.
Don't take this personally, Mr. Bingham.
Personally, this is the most personal situation that you are ever going to enter. So before you try to revolutionize my business, I'd like to know that you actually know my business.
Oh, dear me. Clooney does it best. There's no one that does it better than Clooney. Okay. So that's organizational change. And that's the resistance that we face. So I'm not going to dissect it just yet, because we need to cover up some theory behind that. But it's a good introduction. It's going to set you up for the evening. And as we're progressing through, we'll flip back and we'll start reflecting on everything that they were chatting on there and use that situation as we're moving through. So we start first with something that's known as an iceberg that sinks organizational change. So why the reference to an iceberg? Well, what are the characteristics of an iceberg? Well, an iceberg has a certain portion above it and a certain portion that's underneath the water. And the portion that's underneath the water is absolutely large. It's considerably larger than what's on the top of the surface. So in general, it could be 30%, 70%, 30-70 ratio breakdown. Now, if you think that floating iceberg looks massive on the outside, when you look at you consider the size that the sea under the water has to be is massive, really, really massive. So what this then tells us is that there are a lot of below the surface items in organizational change that can have a dramatic impact on organizational change, and it can potentially derail the best of efforts if we do not fundamentally understand what's lying beneath, what's waiting for us under the water there. So let's look at that there. What is it? What is it that's lying for us in wait in this behemoth? So on the surface, we have it brilliant. Strategy, vision, goals, shared value, their organizational structures, new policies. Oh, fantastic. Everything is above board there. Now we see the immense structure that sits below the surface of the water. And here we see what's there, invisible organizational culture. These are people's beliefs, perceptions, unwritten rules, stories, shared assumptions, norms, tradition, procedures, feelings. We remember that Lloyd's banking video, the one with the VR headset, was that whole rumor and that lady with the walking stick. There was just a non-stop bara, 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 bara. They're going to fire us. I've been here for so many years. I can do this. I can do that. I can do this. Those kind of things exist. It goes on. So we need to be fully aware, because in here sits our George Clooney's. This is where our George Clooney's sit. They're sitting solidly in this undersurface part over here. All these things are sitting with them. Discusses that, unwritten rules, their perception, their beliefs, their feelings, the procedures, the tradition. He actually doesn't have a home. He's used to spending Christmas in that Tulsa motel in Arizona. He's been doing it for the last 14 years. So when we look at the 21st century, as we said, the challenges that we started to experience in the 21st century have created a volatile and an unstable environment. And it is imperative that organizations are able to adapt, because if they don't adapt, they most certainly will die. And we have a variety of threats that organizations face. These include geopolitical risks. Geopolitical risks arise from tensions in a variety of different locations: Sudan, Ukraine, Russia invasion, Palestine, Israel. There are geopolitical tensions ongoing throughout the world. Libya, we look at Nigeria, there are various challenges there. There are challenges in every sector, and these impact organizations in different ways. Most importantly, they create a disturbance to the market. Then we have supply chain challenges. Supply chain challenges have been arising with risk to geopolitical tensions. They've been arising with various challenges to maritime choke points that have occurred, as well as staffing concerns. And then we have our environmental threats, where we are seeing phenomenal. It's become common day practice, everyday practice. We've so fast adapted to it, but it wasn't that prevalent previously. But the climate change that we've now experienced and the disasters that are associated with it, we're seeing hurricanes that they can no longer categorize as category 5. Scientists are now looking at a category 5.5 or a category 6 to effectively describe the strength and damage that those hurricanes can deliver. We're looking at devastating tornadoes. We're looking at devastating floods, devastating droughts, wildfires across the globe. All these are having a dramatic effect on organizations. And the unpredictability behind it is phenomenal. Earthquakes, tsunamis, all these are being added up. And all these are challenging the markets. So energy is at a huge all-time high. The demand for energy is at an all-time high. Be it your fuel that you use in your car, the electricity that we're running on, the gas lines that we use to power up various things, our heating and those kind of needs are done. All these energy requirements are at an all-time high. So we live in an extremely volatile situation, and it's important to be adaptable. And specifically related to our case study, we're dealing with the COVID pandemic, global pandemic, that brought the whole world to a ground. Boom. So this is where we say, if organizations resist change that is so brutal, the only way they can survive is if they change. If they don't, they perish. And they need to develop, organizations need to develop the specific skills of being flexible and adaptable to tackle these threats and be ready. A huge challenge that has also come on the market that is also driving change is technology. The rapid rate of technological change it's just been unheard of. The pace with which we are moving forward and racing into the future. Put it in Star Trek words, we've gone into hyperdrive. We are seeing technologies come on day by day that are changing the way organizations can operate. So if we consider all those points that I've just risen, then what is needed? What does an organization need to do? What's the first step that they've got to do? They've got to analyze the environment. That's the first thing that they need to do. They need to analyze the environment. Now, which environments? Well, there are two. There's the external environment and the internal environment. That's one set. There's external and internal environment. And then we have the competitive environment. Oh, my spelling today is up. Oh. Okay, so external environment and internal environment, and then we have the competitive environment. So breaking that down, how do we analyze that? Well, the external environment is analyzed with a pestle analysis. This is the external environment. And then a SWOT is the internal environment. And then our Porter's 5 forces is our competitive environment. I'll explain these a little bit in detail to you. And then we have our scenario planning, which is our risk plan. Okay. Now we have these big words that come in over here. So macroeconomic environment, that refers to the external environment, and your microeconomic environment refers to your internal environment. Okay. All right. So what does this first one start with? Pestle. Well, pestle So your pestle analysis, your first one, your pestle analysis is the political, political, economic, social, technological, legal, and environmental analysis. So that's what PESTLE stands for. The original one was PEST, and then the expansion is legal and environmental. So you're going to assess what is the current political situation. The change of leadership, political leadership, is very important because it impacts new regulations, regulations and can include new laws and regulations that will come about with new administrations. It's important to understand what the political situation is, and depending on how stable the political environment is how stable the market fluctuations will be. Then economic, these include things such as what are the government's economic policies? What is the GDP? What are they looking at in terms of a specific marketplace? How are we moving in terms of interest rates? Are interest rates very high? Interest rates are low? All those kind of things you're going to cover. Social, you look at social welfare issues, what those are currently in the country, including things like how high is the unemployment rate, skill shortages, all these kind of things can come into social. Technological, that's standard. Technological, there you look at the main aspects over here. You want to look at what are the infrastructure that government is providing in terms of technology. How well are they supporting the business environment in terms of providing technology infrastructure? That's what you want to see. So are they promoting the development of technology? Are they promoting the innovation? Are they, all these things you look at. And in the legal environment, that takes a little bit more in depth than the political one. You're going to look specifically at which regulations impact your organization. What are those regulations that the organization needs to follow through? Are there any potential changes that will come in? And then environmental, what are the new environmental laws that the organization needs to be compliant with? What are the potential changes that can come about in that day? That's your pestle, that's your macroeconomic outlook or the external environment outlook. Then we look at the SWOT process. The SWOT process, that stands for strength, weakness, opportunity, and threat. Strength, weakness, opportunity, and threat. Here you're looking at specifically what are the organization's strengths, what are its assets that it had, which asset, things like its brand name, its brand image, what kind of things are those that the organization possesses that gives it its strength, what are its weaknesses on the other hand, and then taking into consideration the strengths, what opportunities do those strengths present? You need to analyze that. Taking the weaknesses into account, what threats do those weaknesses present? So taking into account the strength, you identify the strengths. Based on those strengths, what opportunities do they present? Identify the weaknesses. Based on those weaknesses, what threats do the weaknesses present? Easy does it. And then we have Porter's 5 forces. That is the competitive environment. Just a brief overview of that there. That will look at things like buying power of the supplier and buying power of the customer. Are 2 powers that we look at. We look at 5 different powers. So when we're looking at buyer power, we want to know suppliers. When you look at suppliers, do they have a lot of power? What do we mean when we say power? This refers specifically to the fact that the number of suppliers are limited. There are only 3 or 4 suppliers, and they can dictate their terms and conditions because you cannot go anywhere else. You're limited. So they have a very high power. We have to dance to what they say. Now, on the other hand, in a market where there are plenty of suppliers, they then have a low power because we can choose from anybody to supply us. These guys got a lot of stories. We can jump over and meet someone else and get the product from someone else. So that's the type of environmental analysis that you're doing when you talk of a competitive analysis. The same thing applies with your customer, etc. So you'd cover a competitive analysis. used with Michael Porter's 5 forces analysis. And then we have scenario planning. Scenario planning or risk is our risk plan. This is the risk plan that we set up. And scenario planning was created initially by Shell back in late 1960s, 67, 68. And it allowed them to mitigate the Middle East oil crisis that hit in the early 70s. They were the only organization that was successfully able to move through that process without really being impacted. They were ready and prepared for it. So what is scenario planning? Scenario planning is a process that they carry out to look at the worst case scenario. What comes up on the horizon? Based on this, what are trends that are going to lead? And if you look at those trends and you plan out on the trend, where does it sit? What's the worst case setup? And one of the most remarkable ones that came out of that was the Wimbledon Tennis Association. Sure, you all know the Wimbledon tennis tournament that happens. They're a big tennis association, sports association, based in the city of Wimbledon in the United Kingdom. Shortly after the 9/11 attacks, they carried out a scenario analysis. They were concerned what could be the worst case scenario that could come up. And on their scenario analysis, they developed a theory that there was a possibility for a global pandemic. 2001, their scenario analysis predicted the possibility for a global pandemic that will shut the world down. They were the absolute laughing stock of just about every sporting organization. They didn't know what they were smoking. They didn't know what magic bones they were throwing, that where this pandemic is going to come from and shut the entire world down. Nonetheless, Wimbledon believed in their analysis, and they took out an insurance policy which would cover them for the complete operations, all their operation, profit, everything. Took it out at Lloyd's of London, such that if they had to shut down completely and have nothing operating, they would still be able to cover all their operational costs, their staff, whatever, boom, 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 all their operational costs would be covered. And they continued to diligently pay those insurance premiums. When we went into the COVID pandemic in 2020, and the world did shut down, the Wimbledon Tennis Organization were fully covered. Lloyd's of London had an absolute responsibility to pay them out, because for 20 years they had diligently paid those premiums and they were ready. There was no fear. No staff got dismissed. No staff got let go. No changes had to happen to the whole thing. Yeah, they had to do some work online or whatever. But basically, they just went on holiday because the organization was fully catered. It did not matter that the event did not take place in that year. Their full expenses, their full turnovers, everything was covered. And how did they achieve that? Was through scenario planning. And scenario planning gave them that vision to see what was possible on the horizon. And they were fully prepared for it. And they were one of the few organizations in the world that were least impacted by COVID. Nothing happened. They were fully sorted out. They were ready. So that's scenario planning, and if done correctly, can really assist organizations a big way. So you have 4 of these items that pop up: pestle, SWOT, competitive, and the risk plan. Let's listen to our friend Simon Sinek again, and then we'll come back and we'll go deeper into this. We'll take a break after this, and then we'll continue after the break.
If I asked you, do you need to change? And
Yeah.
you said to me, no, I'd be worried. You know, like, you think you've figured everything out, like emotionally, professionally, all your relationships, everything's golden? Oh, okay, how's that working out for you? You know, I think the answer is always yes, which is to view ourselves or our organizations as works in progress. You know, that is an infinite mindset. Infinite mindset is fundamentally constant improvement. So, you know, there's big change, there's little change, there's tweaks, there's dramatic change. Sometimes it's reacting to changing cultures, changes in culture, politics, technology. You know, sometimes the change is our own, sometimes we have to react to it. But I think the honest answer is yes, we have to change. There's always opportunity to improve something. So there's this notion in businesses that people fear change, which is just fundamentally not true. People fear sudden change, you know? But incremental change is not threatening. People fear change that threatens them, right? And very often the way we change manage is we do lots of PowerPoint presentations about what's coming and don't worry, and we have all these things, and we treat it very rationally, and what we're ignoring is the emotional response. Now, there are some people who love change. It's an infinite-minded thing to embrace uncertainty, to see opportunity in surprise. For some people, especially people who have gotten good at doing something for 10 years, 20 years, that all of a sudden you say you're going to change it, they fear, again, there's that emotional word, they fear that they won't know how to, or it will set them back. And so no number of rational assurances will help them get over that. At some point, we have to just let them go through the process. The law of diffusion is a theory that was proposed in the 50s or 60s by Emmett Rogers. And basically all populations shift across the standard deviation, the old bell curve. If you have high performers, you have low performers, you know, et cetera, stuff like that. And what the law of diffusion tells us is that the first 2.5% of your population are your innovators. This is your big idea people. Elon Musk, Steve Jobs, right? Then you have 13.5% of your population that are your early adopters. These are the people who are willing to pay a premium, suffer an inconvenience, extend extra energy to be a part of something that reflects their own beliefs. Stand in line to see Star Wars a week before it comes out, even though you can just wait 2 or 3 weeks and buy a ticket and go in. For them, it's worth it, right? And then you have your early and late majority, who are more cynical, more practical. What's in it for me? What guarantee am I going to have? What happens if it goes wrong? Will I get my money back? Like that kind of stuff, you know?
You ever seen the YouTube video of the guy dancing solo, and then the early adopters come, and then next everyone's coming, and that's a movement, right?
That's a great example of how it works. Now amplify that to an organization. The innovator is the person who came up with the idea, the person who first started dancing, and other people said, "You're an idiot," right? But a small group said, yeah, but it's fun. You know, we'll give it a try. And then before you know it, it's a perfect example of how law of diffusions work and how tipping points work. When we try to affect change inside an organization, we obviously want to affect the bell. We want to affect the majority of the company. But that's not how change happens. Because the majority will not try something until someone has tried it first. They're risk intolerant. And so what you actually want to do is aim for the early adopters. You aim for the people who go, all right, it's not perfect, we'll give it a try. And if you can get about 15 to 18% market penetration, it just tips. Again, because someone else has tried it. It's happened. And so the way you affect change in an organization is not to thrust it upon everybody, because you're going to get massive resistance from the majority, but rather identify the pockets of early adopters, individuals and teams, that are willing to try this new thing that you want to try, get the kinks out, and then before you know it, what ends up happening is the majority starts getting angry, like, why weren't we given this? Well, that's called demand. We love that. So it's about building demand and creating that tipping point. That's a more effective way to create sticky change.
Okay, so we're going to look at that there in great detail. We want to understand that because that's fundamentally the process that we want to look at. What he's referring to there is a pilot study, And that's one of the fastest ways to roll change out, is as he says, you want to get to that demand. You want to drive that demand where this starts happening. When you get those early adopters in, you also want to build them up to be change champions. How do they become change champions? They advocate for you. They shout it out loudly. Wow, this works. This is amazing. This is really great. You know, I can reduce my time by doing this. I've done this. I've done that. I couldn't do this before. I can now merge these things together. I'm creating this, creating that. It's amazing. I'm searching on the web. There's so much more I can do. It drives human curiosity to understand what is it that this person is chatting about. And when they're given the opportunity, more and more want to quickly adopt and get on. So again, when we flip back to the George Clooney example, you see and you listen to what Simon just said. There's a lot wrong with that. Don't blast the whole thing onto the whole team out of the blue. One of the biggest failures is out of the blue. Out of the blue, without any explanation, without any background, without any build-up, is problematic. So if they rather took a certain division of their sales team off and tested a pilot study with them and ran that pilot study, say they got 10 of their sales reps in, then when they had the meeting, instead of them going on with that arbitrary guy, Ned, who was in the reception, now she has a proper pilot study that she can refer to. They can then advocate and support the whole process. You're going to get a lot more that are going, you might still have the Clooney, but you get a lot more that will jump on board. All right, let's take a 15-minute break and we come back and then we'll get really stuck into the change management theories. Okay, thank you. So 15 minutes. We're looking at 8:47. Okay, welcome back. Let's get stuck into it. All right. I can't see. Okay, so when we talk of change management, we need to understand that there are two sides to change management. And that we have clearly seen. So the two sides to change management are what are referred to as the technical and the people side of change management. So your technical side, that's involved in all the implementations that's required. Whatever technical hardware is required, whatever technical software is required, everything related to the technical side, including the whole project management process itself, is on that end. And on the opposite end, we have the people side of change. People side of change is this whole emotional response that we got to manage. And immediately there's a link that kicks in the back of your head. If we're talking about anything to do with people within an organization, then the overarching factor that's in charge of monitoring or involved in that process has to be HR. So if we're going to look at change management from an HR perspective, then we're going to look at managing the people during a change process. Okay, so we have organizational change management. It's a complete framework that runs through, gives you the various principles of change, and some successful strategic change management. Most important one is having a vision for the change, but not just any vision. The vision should be easily relatable, that every employee can understand and accept it. You also need very strong leadership to drive the change to achieve that vision. You need to be able to educate the employees, do all the training information, and let them understand and absorb how this will impact their day-to-day activities. And then I spoke about how we're going to measure change. We need to have a concrete plan to know how it's going to be successful. And then the rewards. So we spoke about this when I was explaining, and I said, and they ask you, how well is it going? How successful has the change been? So how would you be able to respond to this? It's very basic stuff, but it comes out very good if you set it up correctly. So you want to know that you've installed a system for, let's say, this finance system and the invoicing setup and everything, and you're running this whole system right from the order taking, your sales staff that are sitting right at the front, right the way through to your billing staff at the back. So front of house, back of house, you've brought in a whole system and you're carrying out the change right through here. And you now get this question from the boss, the senior management. How well did it go? How successful have we been? So what happens is that you have your IT setup and your IT support staff, they issue a ticket. Every time there's a request for support, they issue a ticket. They generate a new ticket and then they close it out. Once they've set up an assistant, they close it out. So on the first day of the transition, we might have a case of 50 to 60 tickets might be issued out. Huge number of call-outs to IT for support. Everything's been happening. It can even be 70. I'm giving an arbitrary figure. Second day, we know now, we are now seeing about 40, 35, 40 come down. By the third day, we have about 10 tickets that are outstanding that came through. requests for support. And by the end of the week, we've only got about 4 or 5 that are coming through. And those are not challenging issues. They can be handled. So based on the number of tickets that you have, you'd be able to calculate your rate of support required. And based on that rate of support, it will show you how successfully the adoption has been. So you'd probably use that as a barometer to gauge how successful the adoption has been. So if you're still seeing 70 tickets being requested after 5 days, you've had a very poor success rate, naturally. But if you've seen that it has reduced down, based on that reduction, you then calculate how successful you've been in the adoption. And that's how you'd come back with a performance evaluation of how successful your change management process has been. That's one way to look at it. One. We've looked at factors impacting change, internal factors, external factors. These are all our environments, our external macroeconomic indicators, the microeconomic indicators. We looked at all those things that impact change across the line. So there are also various forces for change. The knowledge economy, India leading with that there. India is one of the world's greatest knowledge economies, and they actually supplying knowledge with arrangements with various countries. Germany, the latest, has offered a huge number of visas to India for highly skilled staff. And they've 3 decades back, 30 years back, India predicted that this would be the way forward. And they've been driving education and advanced education where maximum number of PhDs, master studies, and specifically studies in the technology field, things like robotic engineering and all your computer science and artificial intelligence have all been advanced degrees, and the world needs the skills. So India is a knowledge economy, and they're thriving on that, and they can do one of 2 things. We've seen it. They can either supply or move your division down to India and be based in India, and you can then employ the local staff there who would supply the skills needed for that to succeed. To you to have your innovation and research department there, absolutely. So we spoke about the external factors, the pestle, the macro environment, all the factors there we went through. And now we come to effective change management. So there are 5 activities contributing to effective change management. And if we put this together, we can see what it would look like in a diagrammatic format. We have the start. The start are these factors that drive change. Now, there are also innovators in the organization. There are also individuals in the organization that we call organizational catalysts. They drive change as well. So, yeah, that's a big timeline, 12 to 18 months. It doesn't normally happen in that range. But nonetheless, we create the big message. We start the information. You take the pulse of the organization. Don't worry about the timeline. You'll take the pulse of the organization. That means how well have they reacted to the information. Then we deliver the message, and we then manage the support. So we're going to overcome the resistance to change, and then we start the process to switch over, and we evaluate the process to see how successful we've been. So here's the process done. It's motivating the change, creating the vision of the change, then developing the political support, managing the transition of the change, and then sustaining the momentum. Hi, Naimani. Good evening. How are you?
Hi, good evening, Mr. Arish and all. I just wonder if you go back on the Pulse for Change. Are we looking at the Pulse for Change as a result of why we want to change, or you are already in the change process? Maybe can you elaborate a bit? Yeah.
No, we want to look at why we want to change. This is looking at the start. What's the driving factor behind change? That's starting the process up. So that's what we're looking at.
Because at this level, then organization or team have already identified the area for changes, and then you are in the screening mode, and you say, okay, now 1 or 2 changes are going to adopt, or we take the one we are moving on, and the one we go through it. Yeah. Okay, fine, thank you.
So obviously, if you already here, you've already identified the process. You still need to motivate why. What's the benefit behind it? Why should we accept this? Why should we adopt this change? So even though you've identified it, you need to motivate it. Once you've gone through that motivation part of it, you need to create this vision. This vision for the change is, as I'm saying, it should be understandable to everyone. Everyone should understand the benefit of this change and what the organization wants to achieve, where it wants to be, why they're driving this. Then you develop the political support. Political support is get all the senior management behind you, get line managers behind you, find team leaders and all that, develop the support for it, that people are now supporting you to say, yes, we want to get this done. It's going to benefit the organization, going to benefit us. All that will happen. Then you start the change process and you manage the transition of the change. That is, you ensure that everyone is trained, understand what's going to come. They're able to effectively adapt to it. Those that resist the change, you manage that process to overcome the resistance to change. And then you sustain the momentum. The demand must build. And the demand will continue to grow and it will spread. That's the 5 activities that contribute to change. So there are also various roles in organization. The change sponsor. Change sponsor will normally be the senior manager, the senior director. It can be the CEO or one of the C-suite. They are normally the change sponsor. That director at the highest level, they are the ones that are going to sponsor the change. Now, why do we need it at the highest level? Because that's the political support that we need to drive this, that it's not some thumbs-up decision that we took on our own. It's coming from the top down. And that's another aspect of change, is having a top-down type of change effect. Now, once the change sponsor has sponsored the change program, and we now draft and create the project, we then have change agents. These are the change agents that are actually going to implement the change. They're the ones that are going to carry out the change. And then you have the change target. That's your end goal, your end vision. That's what you want to achieve. Maybe it can be done in phases. Maybe it's a big process. And yes, it's going to take 18 or 24 months. So that's a long time. It's very far. 18 to 24 months, very far down the line. So in order for that to be successful, you should do it incrementally. Build it up. Do it in phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, phase 4. And you'll evaluate. When you monitor, you'll evaluate and see how successful you've been at individual phases. And then you can then make necessary corrections and progress on to the next phase. And that also, in a way, doesn't tire the organization down. They understand how successful they've been. They understand where they need to improve. And it keeps the momentum going. When there isn't a recognition of them achieving any milestones, then it becomes very tiresome because people cannot afford to see that forward vision of 18 months or 24 months down the line. Okay. So we are here at 25. Right. So we spoke of these two sides of change management. Scroll down here. So there are some prerequisites for successful change management. First one is effective planning. Now, effective planning means that we would have the full support. We have a stakeholder management plan. What is a stakeholder management plan? Stakeholder management plan is how we intend to keep our stakeholders happy. Who would be our stakeholders? Our support staff. All our support run for the thing, the change sponsor, the various change agents, the various directors, senior manager, the line managers in there. What's the frequency and what kind of communication do we need with them? Do they require daily email, weekly email? Maybe at different levels that communication plan will update and change. It's not a static document. We've developed the vision. So if you develop a proper project plan, you then have an effective plan of how you're going to manage and oversee the entire process of change. And your change plan should cover all your areas. What are some of the alternatives? What are the plans for implementing the change? Most importantly, the changes in HR policies and principles. Clear definition of your key performance indicators. And then any definitions if there are new government regulations that come into place. So for a successful change to happen, the organizational structure, roles, and responsibilities should be established and defined clearly to monitor the progress of change periodically and implement corrective actions for seamless transformation. Why are we repeating this? Because question 5 over here tells us to develop a change management implementation plan along with a communication plan to address the new work from home policy. Part of your assignment. Don't worry about the first one. Let's look at the second one over here. Develop a change management plan, change management implementation plan, along with a communication plan to address the new work from home policy. So what should it have? Your change management plan should elaborate the key objectives, which are highlight the strategic alternatives, direction, and organizational restructuring changes in the existing process and people management practices to ensure successful change. You should highlight the resources involved and the timelines within which the results are supposed to be achieved. Changes in HR policy and principles. Clear definition of key performance indicators. Definition of the government structure or framework for effective change management. Roles and responsibilities. How it will be clearly defined to monitor the progress. So there is a governance structure over your framework. You should have a steering committee, and they will be responsible for ensuring the success of the change management. And these members of the steering committee, they have a direct plan, what their direct responsibilities, including running the plan and implementing the strategies. The change sponsor, I explained to you, that is the person that's sitting at the senior level. They're going to be the top brass that's going to oversee this. And then the change agents, these are the people that are actually implementing it. And then we look at our work groups. These are task force or groups directly responsible for the realization of these objectives. Various items over here. So to help with that then, I have some resources for you. And remember, you are speaking now where you're moving the organization due to the COVID pandemic. You are now going online, remote work for the first time. The whole organization is going to go into remote work. So here's some ideas. You need to specify what is remote work. Well, obviously their job right now. Your guidelines and expectations. Review technology needs and resources. You will review their work schedules. You need to draft a work plan. What are responsibilities or tasks? What routine responsibility or tasks require regular communication? Are there any special projects or tasks that they'll have to be involved in? What events or meetings are scheduled? What timings would that happen at? So you're going to have a daily morning briefing. Every morning happens 8:30 a.m. Everybody needs to be online at 8:30 a.m. We are running a organization-wide 8:30 a.m. meetup. The director is on board. The sponsor will be online. They'll be addressing the workforce. Are they happening daily, weekly? All that kind of thing you need to come up with. And you need a communication and accountability plan. That's what it says, along with a communication plan. So this should include employees, how often they should send updates on work plan progress, what those updates should include. Supervisors should also communicate how quickly they expect the employee to respond in 48 hours, in 24 hours. Conduct regular check-ins. So there's quite a bit of information there. Then I've got this handout. This handout over here is the International Labour Organization. This is an employer's guide on working from home in response to the outbreak of COVID-19. And this is a step-by-step guide as well. Again, as I said, what is working from home, how is work, all jobs suited, how companies are adapted, what are workers' responsibilities. So there's a template over here that you need the policy to be set up, a working from home policy template. There's a good template over here. So please understand this question very clearly. You will write it in the context of your organization and your sector or industry, and based on the COVID-19 pandemic, when all organizations and work went remote, you do not specifically have to go and find your organization's whole COVID-19 plan and ask them for it and everything. You do not have to say. You can be creative based on your research, based on what we've discussed here in class, based on all that there. You can be creative and you can develop it. Understand something. I don't work at your organization. I don't have a link to your organization, nor does the evaluator. We are not going to read this over here and say, oh, George said at the Hilton Hotel they did this. We do not pick up the phone and phone the GM and say, listen, you got an employee by the name of George. He said that you'll do this. Did you actually do this? As long as you cover the core concepts behind what should be required, that's what's needed. So I have a lot of students that email me and say, we can't find this. We went and we asked the manager. The manager said it's confidential information. How do I answer this question? What must I do? They're in absolute panic mode. Say, but guys, just be creative. Look at all your notes. Look at your slides. Do some research. We're sharing resources. Develop and create what should be an example of that there. And there's one over here. This is a template. It's giving you a good example. So set this up from here. That's your work from home policy, what the policies are. And then you set up the plan. So your plan would have to include what? Number one, IT support. Number one is IT support. We need to check. IT would download the software. Yes, I will, Osama, I will. They would download software. What? Why am I answering it? Let you answer. What would be, okay, let's go to your, I have it here. What are some of the requirements that would happen? What do you need to communicate? You can tell me in the chat box. But this one over here, Naimani, I'll share it again. The other ones I will definitely, I'll email that one off to you. Can you tell me what are some of the items that we need to inform the staff that you're going to include on your change management plan? What are some of the things that had to come through? What were the basics that had to kick in immediately? As an HR, now as an HR person, as a manager person coming in, you're giving instructions to HR. What do you want done? What had to be done? Inform them the new policy. Sorry, I'm writing as we're going. New work from home policy. Right, next one. Michael, a little bit more than communication. What did we need next? What kind of platform were we using? Platform, are they using Zoom? Yeah, communication tools, apps, what are we using now? So communication, let me copy that. Thanks, George. Communication tools or apps, are we going on Zoom? Are we going on Microsoft Teams? Laptops, how well are the laptops running? So what do we need for laptops? We need IT support. IT will be able to use remote login and come on. Not really modems. What else do we need? So here we go. I'm missing that there. Naimani says, how many days to be physically on duty and online? Okay, I'm coming to that one, Naimani. I'm going to go with Michael over here. Wi-Fi. Right. Then your work hours. That has to be there. But that Naimani, I'm thinking is going to run very specifically to individuals. All those financial supports and allowances will be tailored for each individual. You run those individually out to the individuals. But as a general change management plan, you wouldn't run that there and announce to everybody, oh, I'm giving Anesh $50 for internet. However, you guys don't normally do that much of work. So you guys on a half day, I'm going to give you 20. You don't normally. So that's a confidential salary structure. So you'd send out an individual one specifically for them. Cloud space. Okay. So cloud space over here, we want to have storage. So we want to have data management. Data management. So data management refers to our cloud space, where we're going to store the data and how you can access that there. That had to be done. So normally we go to the cupboard, we take out a file, and we got everything that we need in there. Now all of a sudden, there's no office, there's no cupboard, and there's no file there to access everything. So now you need to know how you're going to access the information that you require, and where, as you're moving through, where do you stack that then? If the company has enough money side, they can install time tracking tools. If they have enough money, it's quite costly. And I don't think very many of them did it. If there is a requirement, I would put that some other way. More than time management tools, I would put we've covered this here. Work hours. We'll leave it under work hours. I'll leave it under work hours. They've got their work hours there. Wellness programs and cybersecurity. Right. Based on cybersecurity, I want to elaborate, Riyadh, on cybersecurity. What else is of concern? Content, the type of content. So we don't want a guy busy on his happy site there, and he links up on a Teams meeting or whatever, and his happy site pops up over there. So we need to control content. We need to have access control on those laptops and ensure that we are controlling that. Yeah, no, it's best. We're looking strictly at a work from home policy. We're not looking at any hybrid situation over here. We're looking at strictly at a work from home situation. Yeah, sorry, no, we are. If you've got a hybrid situation, then you will have some of your more critical staff that will move into a hybrid. So you need to differentiate that as well. I apologize, that's correct. So you'd have some of your critical staff that will move into a hybrid situation, and your non-critical staff that will remain on a work from home. Some organizations only had a work from home policy. There was no hybrid issue to them. VPN connections, we covered that under Wi-Fi. What about dress codes? We saw some of the most phenomenal dress codes around. Dress codes are important. Must be. Dress code has to be a part of that policy. Dress codes are very important. What else haven't we covered? I think we've got everything. Naimani, go for me while I'm trying to brainstorm what else we haven't covered here.
Yeah, just to share on a lot of video have been shared and used for presentation on change management on working from home. Dressing code is really important, as we saw many people in many organizations that dress code was not properly and the camera was left on and became funny. That's what we saw it in many learnings. Yeah. So just to share.
Now, just to expand on that, Naimani, the other big point is what I've got on here. I've got a background. Shouldn't the organizations also develop backgrounds for all the staff, and you have a standardized background and get all the staff on one standardized background that's set up so that you have this background and you prevent some unwanted pictures from coming onto the screen, so to say. So that can be something as well that we can put into there. Have a background. Backgrounds for online. All right, I think we've covered a big portion of that there. That's what your plan is going to cover. You should also, in your policy, the policy should also update on leave. On leave requirements. What are the leave requirements? Are staff still allowed to take annual leave, or is all annual leave suspended until we get back into a normal situation? Because it's all hands on deck, so we cannot have staff taking leave. What would be the requirements in terms of sick leave? What about things like COVID vaccinations? The vaccination certificate, you want all staff to be insured of vaccinations, vaccination certifications. You want COVID tests. Your company will pay for all these things. It's under the company cost. They'll cover the cost of that there. They need the staff to do these COVID tests. I can't remember, they were once a week or every 5 days or every 10 days that we went in for one. Yeah, I think we covered maximum of them. So your communication part of it, all these aspects had to come in. So I think everybody has a solid idea of how to answer that second question. And as I say, I'm sharing with you a few resources here regarding some templates behind it and what can be used. And you'll adapt this. You don't have to use it word for word. You use what you need. It doesn't have to be 20 pages, 30 pages. You can just create it in a shortened form. Highlight the most important aspects like I've done now. And go through that, just put a little bit of fanciness into it to show a bit more detail. Fine. You don't have to put this entire 20-page policy document and 30-page document together. It's just a short idea behind it. Create a table, put it together, set it up, anything like that there. But I'm just giving you references to give you some ideas. There's another one on Jishe. And this is what's there. Okay, some ideas behind that there. Here's another guide. This is the HR Leaders Manual for transitioning teams to remote work. Managing remote teams, keeping your people healthy, creating a COVID-19 response plan. So it gives you some solid examples and ideas. Yeah, this is another one. That's another one. There must be daily updates from HR or management. Daily updates on the COVID situation. Daily updates or weekly update, where the staff must know They must be expecting it. So they must have a set. That's a good point that I just saw there. There should be a definite timeline. We should not hang it in the air. That should be clearly stated. The organization every 2 days will provide an update. That update will be shared daily at fortnightly at 8 a.m. in the morning. We'll share that update and we'll give you an update of where the situation is. So that will include environmental information, what the health minister said, what's going on, what's the health department, what's the current structures, what they're expecting to happen. Keep your employees informed. Don't let them be guessing. You don't want rumors and guesses to come up. How well the organization is doing, how well they're progressing. They need to get this information. They need to get it from you, from the source. They should not be getting it through gossip. So ensure that that is happening as well. Yeah, and if there are issues, you can include those kind of sessions with HR. So those kind of sessions HR can schedule and say, listen, we'll have a little bit of a team meeting and we'll run this through. So absolutely, but ensure that the COVID pandemic updates are regularly being transferred to the staff, that you are informing the staff on that there. Daily updates, weekly update, whatever, but have a set plan behind that. Is there anything else? Yeah, this one we could also put in. COVID recovery timeline. I know my organization was 14 days. 14 days you were put off work if you shared positive on COVID. Was a recovery timeline of 14 days plus negative test. So that also had to be covered. There's another example over here. This is how you could move to remote work. So you've got some good resources over here to help you. Oh, this is an interactive one. Okay, so there's some good resources to help you with that there, and for you to understand how to answer half of this question. Develop a change management implementation plan along with a communication plan to address the new work from home policy. All right. Now let's get stuck into apply any two change management models to your organization. And then we need to look at strategies to overcome resistance. Okay, so I think before we kick into the change management models, let's look at strategies to overcome resistance. Hooey, 9:30. Got a lot to go still. Okay. So one of the leading researchers on strategies to overcome change is from Professor Cotter and Professor Schlesinger. They developed the strategies to overcome resistance to change, and I will share this with you. So these are their strategies that they've developed, and they talk of this clearly, is education and communication. So we communicate the plan and we educate them around why we want to do this, the motivation behind it. Then we drive the participation and involvement from our early adopters to the demand building up. We support facilitation. We drive facilitation and we offer support. for people that are having difficulty to adjust. But then we stop. Here, we stop over here. So the first one that we did education and communication. The second one we did was the pilot one, drive the participation, get the early adopters, drive the demand. Then we facilitate wherever we can, we assist, drive, we provide support. But I specifically drawn a line over here. And that has a very, very specific reference. Because what does that line mean? Well, it means I've drawn a line in the ground. And it means now I'm tired of your nonsense. I've had enough. There's a line in the ground here. And this is where we stop talking now. So if you still want to be stubborn with me and you don't want to accept what I'm proposing to you and you're not accepting everything that I've offered, we now start a different process. So there are two parts to this. We have everything that's going on. Guys have accepted it, moved on. However, we have our George Clooney's. They've got their boxing gloves on. So, okay, we don't put our boxing gloves on, but nonetheless, we're going to put it on the table. It's here next door to me. I'm not fighting, but if I have to, it's here. I'm ready. So my first step is, I like George. Good guy. Don't want to lose him. Been a long time with us. So let's see what we can negotiate. We're going to start bargaining and we see if we can come to some agreement and do a quiet agreement and pass it off. And okay, we have to make some concessions. We'll make some concessions and we'll come up with something and we'll give it to him. We want to keep him. Now it goes beyond that. It goes beyond that there. So we have our first phase here. We negotiate. Then we go to manipulation and cooptation. Now under manipulation and cooptation, we try and manipulate them. We try and buy them over and get them to really accept what we're saying. And when we talk of cooptation, that's another method that we can use, is that the person that's the loudest, that's making the most amount of noise about the whole change and doesn't want to adapt and is keep firing off on all the staff, and everybody seems to be listening to that person. No matter what you do, that person seems to have the whole organization, all the employees in their palm of their hand, and they keep firing off that this is not going to be successful. So how do you overcome a person like that? Is to co-opt. Now, what does co-opt mean? Co-opt means is that we call the person in, we say, hey, how are you doing? Thank you. You know what? We've really been noticing, You're doing a phenomenal job. Just look at the response that you get out there. It's amazing. And don't think it hasn't been noticed. We absolutely taking notice. We can see what's happening. And in line with that there, we want to offer you a promotion. We're going to offer you a promotion. And we're bringing you in as XYZ manager. And as part of that deal, because we've seen the immense influence that you've had over here, and we're really thrilled with that, and we can see the impact that you're going to have. You're now going to lead this change management process, and all these teams are going to report to you. We want you to take charge. We're confident you have the skills, and we're confident you can make an absolute success of this. Now you put the guy in a catch-22 situation, the guy or the girl, you put them into a catch-22 situation because they were totally against this. Now all of a sudden they're the manager, they're in charge. You've co-opted them, you swap them around, you bring them in and you grant them this. We know full well in 1 year we're going to fire them and kick their ass out, excuse my language. We're going to put them out the organization. We know that's going to happen. But for now, we cannot dismiss them. Why? Because they are very influential. If we go into a dismissive position, the political situation will blaze into a wildfire, which you will not be able to control. So rather than attack this antagonistically, and come in to fight the situation, we say, bang, no. Bring him in. Bring him in. Give him a hug. Say, okay, don't hug. Just say, hey, hi. Come into our circle. Now you're going to be included in the morning meetings. You're going to join us here on the table. There's your instructions. Fantastic. Here's a promotion for you. You can put a salary increase, whatever. It's worth the investment. If you're going to keep them quiet and you're going to turn them around, it's absolutely worth the investment. However, they know what you've done, and they know they're never going to be part of that morning team, even though they're sitting there. They are just an attachment, and they'll get picked off easily, and they themselves will resign. They'll walk away quietly in that year's gap. They'll feel the pressure and they'll walk away quietly. It's been proven over and over again. So that's our next step that we have over here. And then we have the last step, the mafia step. We now put on our gloves and we say, okay, bud, here's what happens now. This train is going. Whether you like it or not, this train is going to continue. So if you're not prepared to continue with this train, you're absolutely welcome. You can jump off at this station and go on your own way, find your own train. But if you decide to stay on this train, then you're going to follow our rules, regulations, and you're going to change to the new process. If you're not happy with it, we're not forcing you. Please jump off the train at the next station here. Go on your way. Bye. But this train is going on. And we are not going to be threatened. We've got our gloves on. We're fully prepared to meet you with our legal team. Just as much as you are fully righted to come and challenge us, we are ready to tackle that challenge. So here's where it stops now, and we're ready to go to war. However, there's some challenges to that. If it's not an individual and you're dealing with the unions or you're dealing with organized labor, then you have some serious headaches and some serious challenges. But you'd follow pretty much a similar steps where you try and convince, you try and work through it. But when the organized labor gets violent, you then have a serious situation, because then you have lives at risk where they are now challenging, threatening, damaging property. Everything like this can happen. It can become very difficult. And we've seen some of the very best of organizations that we thought that were indestructible crumble at their knees and collapse. One of the biggest was the Leyland Group out of the United Kingdom. The Leyland Group at that time had the Land Rover franchise. They had the Rover vehicle. The royal family of the United Kingdom only rode in the Rover vehicles. So Land Rover, Rover, they own the Mini franchise. They own the Jaguar franchise. And they own the there was the Morris Minor and the Morris Apache. So big plants, not only in the United Kingdom, big plants in India, big plants in South Africa, big plants in Australia, and they produce several vehicles. South Africa even produced the V12 Jaguar XJS for global export. However, industrial action at the mother plant eventually collapsed them, and they've been through numerous ownerships and changes before eventually, that was the late 80s that this happened. Several of the plants closed, including those in South Africa, huge ranks of unemployment, and then eventually the mother company was separated, and we had a piecemeal taken apart, and Rover has been shelved. Tata owns Rover, but it's shelved. They haven't produced any Rovers. The Land Rover is owned by Tata. Jaguar is owned by Tata. Mini's gone to BMW. The other ones were shut down, shelved. So industrial action, and when it becomes aggressive and the unions get involved, can honestly cripple an organization. But it depends. So your resistance to change can take several formats at the individual level, at a team level, and at an organizational level. When you hit an organizational level, you need to take some time and think about it, because now that's big trouble. That's organization-wide. Something you're doing is not right. Something that you've developed and changed and set up is not gelling, it's not working out, it's not going on right. There's a limit to how much you can force feed. So these are your strategies here. I will share this out with you, and you would look I would say maybe there. We can look at education and communication, participation, and involvement. We can green light all these ones. One, two, three, four. Relative to this change plan. And strategies to overcome resistance. There's it here. Strategies to overcome resistance. You shouldn't be too serious. It was COVID-19. I think the first three should definitely be the methods that you'd work through. These first three should be the most popular strategies that I would suggest. If you think you need to use number 4, you can go ahead, but definitely not the other ones won't fall into place. 1, 2, 3 were very relevant to COVID. So I'll definitely share this with you, and it would give you an example of it. There's the full explanation here in the actual article to tell you how to use it, when to use it, advantages, drawbacks. So you get a detailed explanation over here behind that as well. When there's a lack of information or inaccurate information analysis, where the initiator do not have all the information they need to design the change. People are resisting because of adjustment problems. And then you got negotiation and agreement. All right. So these are all our strategies to overcoming the resistance to change. And then this one here was quite a nice one as well. Dell Technologies. And they are looking at the human side of technology change. And they recommend a ACM. An ACM acronym stands for Adoption and Change Management, and a structured approach to this. I can't get a clearer one than this here. The first one is driving the awareness for the change, having a desire to change, acquiring the necessary knowledge, and then gaining the ability to perform the change. Then 5, sustaining the change by continual reinforcement. Okay. I think we've taken it up to there. We are now have the models. So we're now here at this one. The change models. Okay. So before I kick in any further, because we are at the end of the evening of year 948, tell me, any questions so far on understanding the change management plan, drawing up the change management plan for the COVID situation, and discussing the strategies to assist for resistance to change? Okay, let's look at another one. Right, there's a good one over here on it as well. How to address resistance to change. So resistance to change over here is also given a good explanation where they don't understand the change. These are all strategies as well that you can use. This is on education, explaining the value. Is it open to change? Doesn't see the benefits of the change, fear, other emotional responses. So this is another example of it over here. And it gives you a bit more information over here. Habits, people are used to their habits. Now we're going to change their habit to go remote. They have a lack of tolerance for change. There's a fear of the negative impact, fear of losing something really valuable, their job. A rigid belief that change cannot bring about any real facilitating change in the organization, and that it's a painful process. So all these here can come into play and can assist you. So here are the techniques here. There are the strategies. They brought down over here: widespread education, improving communication, facilitation, participation and involvement, support and facilitation, agreement and negotiation. Don't worry about these 2. And there's a good explanation of each one of them given over here as well. Yeah, so remember this one. Don't use emails and memos for information. Don't send out information via that as a surprise. Make sure that you schedule Teams meetings, Zoom meetings, online meetings face-to-face, and you clearly elaborate and explain it. Then you send the email out to support that there and to recapture everything. Fine. That's okay. But don't let the email come through and be the surprise. Rather have the face-to-face discussions. Invite suggestions and feedback from staff members. There's all your stuff is broken down over here. Very nicely set up. Okay, I'm just trying to find out where I am. You can sit and read through all these notes over here. There's a good deal of notes in here. So this is an introduction to organizational change. What Simon was talking about, there's incremental or continuous change, and then we have episodic or discontinuous change. So this kind of spike is what the COVID pandemic brought in. It was this unknown. Reactive or remedial, proactive, anticipatory. It was definitely going to be a reactive or a remedial change. There was no ways we predicted that was going to happen. The change had to be top down. It could not be bottom up. It was process, systems, people, culture, and organizational structure. Transformational. It impacted the whole organization, not just a single group. The whole organization was impacted. There's some good examples in here that you can also use. So good reading. You need to read. You need to read a lot through this before you answer that question. And obviously we have the role of HR, which I do want to get into next week before we start. We'll pick up there at the role for HR. And we'll run from that. I'm just looking for one specific video link. So this is another excellent change management video. This is Duck Dynasty. Don't know how many of you all know Duck Dynasty or have watched Duck Dynasty. So Duck Dynasty is a family-owned business, and they supply all these outdoor activity-based gear. They're a bunch of characters, absolute bunch of characters.
As far as policies go, some of the things I thought that would make the company better is something as simple as uniforms.
What is this crap here?
Some awesome new uniforms.
This is not a beauty contest.
I thought the guys would like it. Well, I had another thing coming.
I knew this was a bunch of crap.
The only way that I would wear that if I was dead.
You done lost your mind.
For some reason, things that match and nice pressed pants, no, that was out.
I'm not doing it. I'll tell you that right now.
I ain't asking permission.
We make duck calls. Quack, quack.
Quack, quack. Put your uniforms on, boys.
I don't know what happened. Willie, he either had a nightmare or something at home. We had to wear a stupid uniform.
I cannot believe y'all put those uniforms on. This is ridiculous.
Jace, he got hard-headed. He said, I'm not wearing the uniform.
Jace, go get your uniform.
I am not wearing a uniform.
All right, this is where we draw the red line. This is where we draw the red line.
Ever.
All right, I'm docking your pay.
All right, dock my pay. I find the whole idea of having company policies ridiculous.
You see, that's where we draw the red line. Where did everyone go? But they're really a fantastic group, Doctor. So a simple thing like uniforms can create that big a drama and that big a scene as we've seen there. But you had that old man that was a resistor. There were others. They were early adopters. They took it on. He accepted. He got on board. But then you had the hard nut where he refused point blankly. So you see your different stages and your various different steps. And immediately he'd drawn the line. Drawn his red line. Said, okay, bang. No, fine. We dock your pay. Your pay will be docked until you get into uniform. You don't get into uniform, you don't get paid. So he's adopted a very strong, a very hard line around it, and he's going to force the issue. So it gives you an important understanding of how you manage resistance to change. Any questions? We'll pick up on HR's role, and we'll run from HR's role going down, and we get into the change management models. We're going to cover 4 models. We'll cover Adcar Prosky. We'll cover Kurt Lewin, and we'll cover Professor Cotter, the one that we saw now with the strategies to resistance, and we'll cover the Satir change model. So 4 models we'll cover. The popular 2 models. So you'll find that the Kurt Lewin is a plug-in. It's a plug-in one. So you'd definitely use a Kurt Lewin. That's your plug-in one. And you would either use a Cotter or an Adcar Prosky. So you go Kurt Lewin and Cotter, or Kurt Lewin and Prosky. You would never go with 2 big models, a Prosky and a Cotter. They're individual plans, and they're massive. They're massive plans. They're transformational throughout the organization and everything. So they'll clash against each other. It's not possible. So you either take a plug-in like a Lewin and this, or a Lewin and that one, but not those 2. I've seen students write, oh, we're going to use Cotter and Prosky's model. Really? Wow. Can't work. There's no organization that can manage those size of those models. The models are individual. They run on their own. The plug-in to that is Kurt Lewin. So don't write in your assignment, I'm going to do Prosky and Cotter. Kurt Lewin is a common. That's your plug-in one that you have. And either you're going to do Cotter or Prosky. And we're going to see why you need which one. And which one would be more relevant to your situation based on that examination. Okay. All quiet on the Western Front. Very quiet. Very quiet evening. All right. No questions at all. All right. Good. All right. Fantastic, guys. Fantastic. All right, then. Thank you. Thank you. Good evening, everybody, and thank you very much. And I'll see you on the last lesson on Wednesday, and we'll wrap it up on Wednesday. Thank you. Good night. Thank you. Thank you. Good night, everyone. Good night, Richard. Thank you. Good night. Good night, George. Good night, Riyadh. Thanks, Osama. Good night. Cheers. Good night, guys. Good night. Good night. Thank you. We'll end the lesson here. You can log off now. Thank you, Yaya. Good night. Alayad, good night. Thank you.